Hello again. As you may know, if you follow my Scratch, I previously made a JavaScript tutorial, which in fact turned out to be my most popular project actually. It's kind of an annoying project for me though, as it's actually quite inaccurate as I teach quite a lot of bad web practices. But before we do that, let's check the poll results. The results are clear. Everyone can agree that they don't know.
Technical difficulties.
Okay, so I'll take that as a no until I get more results. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the requirements. So, obviously you're going to need a working Python browser. These tutorials are mainly going to be focusing on Chrome, but I'm also going to include Firefox as it's pretty much on par with Chrome, but almost any browser should work. Except Internet Explorer. Seriously, if you're watching this tutorial on Internet Explorer right now, close your browser right now. I mean, seriously, I'll even accept Edge. Just seriously, it was last updated in 2013. Just look at its HTML5 score. Okay, rant over. Just please don't use a browser that's literally over 5 years old. Please. Thank you. Okay, so you'll also need some kind of text editor. Notepad would probably do, but I'd recommend you use an IDE, such as Atom. You may also want some kind of way of hosting a local HTTP server, but it's not really required. So, before I tell you what to do, I first need to tell you what not to do. Okay, so I think this is just going to be a short part of the video, but feel free to skip it if you haven't seen my last tutorial, as I'm just correcting the mistakes from that tutorial. So, starting things off with eval. Eval. Probably not evil, but definitely misunderstood. So, in my last tutorial, I basically taught you to use it as much as I reference memes in my videos. This is a bad idea though, as it can make your website vulnerable to cross-site scripting attacks. Fortunately, the solution is quite simple. If you're working with JSON, you can use the method json.parse to pass the JSON string into JSON. So, as you can see here, this is no longer vulnerable to cross-site scripting attacks, as I don't use eval anymore. So instead I just use the method json.parse to pass the input from the user that comes from up here. And if you want to input some code into the function so you can use it later, you just need to create an anonymous function. Okay, so what I've just got here is I've got a function that just runs whichever function I input it. So I input in an anonymous function here, which is a form of code. So this would just run alert hello world from here. And then you would just use open bracket, close bracket to run the anonymous function from the input. You can also pass in data to the function through an argument, which is another positive. So, moving on, we have document.write. Okay, so this one isn't really much of a problem, but I didn't really make it particularly clear in the original tutorial. Basically, it can delay the page load if you use it. And it can also wipe the document if you use it once the page is loaded. Okay, so then let's look at the solution. Basically, you can create a paragraph element with an ID and change the inner HTML property to change the text. So what we've got here is just a simple program. I just click the button here and it changes the text. It says an element here which doesn't have any content, and then it just sets the inner HTML property of that element to display the text. Okay, so what we've got here is the code for it. It's really simple. Just got the blank element here which has no contents, so it's not really visible. What it just does here is we've got a button element which has the code button, which is appropriately named.
Illusion 100.
And then there's the function button down here, which just sets the inner HTML property of the upcoming text element to be hello world, exclamation mark. Okay, so as you can see here, this basically does the same thing. The only difference is that the text appears under the button because it's added later. So what we've got here is we've got the button again, which runs the function button, and then this function creates an element, a paragraph element, and it then gives the element, sets the property of the element inner HTML to be hello world, exclamation mark, and then it adds it to the body using the method append child. Just make sure your page has a body though, because otherwise it won't be able to append it as you'll get an error. Right, next up it is the Doctype tag. Yeah, so it turns out that if you don't use the Doctype tag, the browser is put in some kind of weird compatibility mode for HTML4 known as quirks mode. So the solution is, yeah, you literally just need to shove it at the top of the document. There's also a bunch of other tags though that'd be good to use, so I'll give you an example here. Okay, so this is just the example document that I made. You'll see up here there's the Doctype tag. That should always be at the top. I've also got an HTML tag which contains all of the HTML and tells the browser that it's an HTML document. It's also got some just kind of metadata. We got the head tag which contains a meta tag and a title, and then we've got the body here, so you would put your scripts, your JavaScript, and just your other elements, so like a paragraph or some text or whatever. Right, so this one's more of an apology to semicolons. Yep, I'm going to say 1 like equals 1 respect for semicolons.
Mission passed. Respect plus.
Basically, I kind of misrepresented them a little bit. Yeah, you really should use them. I got used to not using them, so I don't really want my code to half have semicolons in, so that's why I don't use them. But I'll try and make sure I stick to them in the rest of the tutorial, as well as sticking to the best web practices. Okay, so with that all out of the way, now it's time for what to actually do. So this is mainly for just people that haven't seen my original tutorial, as I'm going to be starting from the very basics. So unless you're confused, if you've watched my tutorial before, you don't need to watch. Then yeah, bye. So with that out of the way, let's start with the classic hello world. JavaScript has a number of functions that can be used for this, but the simplest way, or probably the best way to do this in this case, is to use HTML. Okay, so you need to create a document like I've got here. It's important that it's got UTF-8 encoding and not anything else, otherwise it might not work correctly. Now that we've got our file, we can add the basic requirements for an HTML file, which is a doctype tag, an HTML tag, and a body tag. Let's start with the doctype tag. You want this to be at the top of your HTML document, so type in a less than symbol, then an exclamation mark, and then type Doctype in capitals, then a space, and then HTML in lowercase, and then finish the tag with a greater than symbol. This is important because it tells the browser that it's an HTML5 document and that it doesn't need to enter a compatibility mode known as quirks mode. In case you're wondering, the less than symbol is the start of a tag and the greater than is the end of the tag. The first word in the tag defines what the tag is, and then everything after that defines the arguments for it. Next, a new line to keep it tidy. Okay, so as we'll soon find in HTML, almost all tags require a closing tag. Now we need an HTML tag. I'm not sure if this is 100% necessary, but it sounds like it's a good idea as it tells the browser that it's an HTML document. So that's a lesser than symbol, then in lowercase HTML, and then a greater than symbol. Okay, so as we'll soon find in HTML, almost all tags require a closing tag. So drop down a few lines, and again, less than, then a slash, an HTML, and then the closing greater than. As you'll again find though, in HTML the spacing and returns don't really matter too much, they just make it tidier. In between the tags is the content of the tag. In this case it contains the HTML of the document. So we need to go into the lines between the tags and put in an indent to tidy the code. So there's one more tag we need to use before we can do something interesting. The body tag. I'm not really sure what it's for, but I think it just makes it clearer that what the body is and what isn't. But it's best practice, so we should probably use it. As you might have guessed, less than, body in lowercase, and then greater than. Then, again, drop down a few lines, then do the same thing again, but with a slash first. Then put your indent in. And now we're finally ready to put some actual content in the web page. So, we just need to put hello world in the body tag, and then save, and then open the file in the browser. And boom, we have some content. Okay, so how about we make it a bit more interactive? There's another element called the button tag, so let's add that in now. So then put in a new line, and then the button. So in between the tag here determines what the button will be called, so let's just call it change text. So in here we need to give it some code, so we do that with the onClick attribute. So onClick equals, so let's set it to run the function, I don't know, toggle text. Let's also put our text in a paragraph element, as this will allow us to change it later, and then we need to give it an ID, so let's just call it text. Next we need to code it, so we need to add a script tag in our body tag, so you just do script and close the script tag and put in the indents. Now we need to define our function using the keyword function.
Illusion 100.
So then type function, then a space, and then the name of the function. As you'll remember, we're referring to a function up here called toggle text, so we can define that here. So toggle text, open bracket, close bracket, and then open curly bracket and close curly bracket, and then put in a return. So much like in HTML, whatever's in here is the contents of it. In this case, it's the code that's going to be triggered by this function, which is triggered by the button up here. Okay, so now we can define a variable for easy access. We want this to be a local variable, so we need to use the keyword var. So var, and then a space, and then the name of the variable, which is text element, and then a space, and then an equals, and then another space. So we want to set it to the result of a function, which is document in lowercase dot get element by ID, separated with uppercase letters like that, and then the ID of the text, which is up here. So just text. Then we need to make an if statement using the keyword, yes, you've guessed it, if. Works in the same way as a function, so we need to type if, then a space, then an open bracket, close bracket, and then open curly bracket, close curly bracket, and then in here is where the code will go. And the condition for the if statement will go in here. So we need to say if the variable text element dot inner HTML in capitals is equal to hello world. Needs to be the same as up here. That's important. Then if that's true, we run the code in the curly brackets over here, and we want that to be text element dot inner HTML equals, I don't know, goodbye world, but not goodbye as in suicide or anything. I'm just going to bed or something.
Technical difficulties.
And else we just want to set it to hello world again. So that's else, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, then return, and then text element dot inner HTML equals hello world. Needs to be the same as the previous ones here, otherwise it won't work. It's also important that you get the number of equals right. This means the same as, whereas this means assign the value to this. So this is setting this to this. Otherwise this is comparing this with this. Don't get them mixed up. And then don't forget your semicolons like I did. So now we can save and reload and see if it worked. So as you can see here, it works. So every time I click this, it changes between the two different texts. So hello world, and then goodbye world, and then back to hello world again.
But wait, there were no semicolons to start with. I even found some leaked footage of Hedgehog 125 being careless. So I guess there's only one thing left to do.
FBI, open up!
So anyway, that's about it for this tutorial. Oh wow, I just seen how long it is. Anyway, so let me know if you've got any questions in the comments or whatever. Also, these buttons seem to do something if you want to try them. But other than that, bye.